Speaker at prayer.
Almighty God, by whom all kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servant here gathered together in thy name do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us all in our consultation, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudice, and partial affection, the result of all our counsel may be, to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weals, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons estate within the same in true Christian love, charity towards one another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
This Honourable House now resumes its sitting. Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Montague, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Mr. McKenzie, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahufort, Mr. Charles, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Green, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Mr. Main, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Davis, Ms. Smith, Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, okay, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Miss Crawford, Miss Daly, Miss Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Miss Hamilton, Miss Hannah, Mr. Enriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Miss Lee, Mr. Miller, Miss Morrison, Miss Nita, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Sibblies, Mr. Slowley, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Witter, Mr. Wright, Mr. Charles,
Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: Ministry Paper number 79 of 2020 and Annual Report of the All Island Jamaica Cane Farmers Association for the year ended September 30, 2018, and Annual Report of the Early Childhood Commission for the year 2018-2019.
Statements from ministers. Statements from ministers.
Madam Speaker, I would like to introduce to the House today 4 individuals who are here to reinforce the Parliament's research capabilities. First, Madam Speaker, is Ms. Stephanie Hamilton, who has joined, and they are in the well of the House, who has joined the staff of the Houses of Parliament as Senior Research Officer in the Committees Division. Ms. Hamilton will be responsible for providing research support to the Committee Division. She assumed duties yesterday and will be joined next week by another research officer. I would also like to introduce Mr. Javon Monroe, Ms. Corey Page Jones, and Ms. Shoshana Simmons, who are participants in the Parliamentary Internship Program. The internship program is a collaboration between the Houses of Parliament and the Center for Leadership and Governance of the University of the West Indies, UWI. These interns will be expected to produce research papers for individual members or for the Parliament as a whole. They will also conduct research for parliamentary committees and for parliamentary delegations attending international conferences and related events. This program, Madam Speaker, provides students with the opportunity to apply their theoretical training to real-world situations. We expect this crop of interns to provide the high caliber of research we have become accustomed to. I invite my fellow parliamentarians to make them feel welcome. Madam Speaker, it is expected today to have 2 statements by ministers, and at an appropriate time in the agenda, I will seek suspension of the standing orders to allow for those statements to be made.
Madam Speaker, we are aware of one statement from the Minister for Industry, Commerce, etc. Could the Leader of Government Business indicate who is the other minister so that we can ensure that the counterpart is present for that statement?
Madam Speaker, I do recognize that the member got it wrong even at the start. It's actually the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries who will make the first of the 2 statements, and the other will be the Minister of Health, who will report on the COVID-19 and residential facilities. So at a later point, Madam Speaker, as I indicated, I'll seek suspension of the standing orders to allow for these 2 statements to be made. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House, therefore, is that the item statements from ministers be deferred until the arrival of the relevant ministers. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions. Reports from committees. Notices of motions given orally.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Shipping Amendment Act 2020.
Member Hilton, not here.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next sitting of the House, I will move the following motion. Whereas subsection 1, G of section 41 of the Constitution of Jamaica requires a member of this Honorable House of Representatives to vacate his seat if any firm in which he is a partner or any company of which he is a director or manager becomes a party to any contract with the Government of Jamaica for or on account of the public service, or if he becomes a partner in a firm or a director or manager of a company which is a party to any such contract. And whereas the Member of Parliament for Clarendon Northern is a partner at Sibblies and Associates, attorneys at law, which may from time to time enter into contract with the Government of Jamaica and its affiliate agencies. And whereas provision is made in Section 1GI of Section 41 of the Constitution to enable this Honourable House to exempt a member from vacating his seat for reasons as aforesaid, if in the circumstances it appears to be just so to do, be it resolved that this motion be referred to the Ethics Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report. Madam Speaker, there is another such motion. So whereas subsection 1G of section 41 of the Constitution requires a member of this Honourable House of Representatives to vacate his seat if any firm in which he is a partner or any company of which he is a director or manager becomes a party to any contract with the Government of Jamaica for or on account of the public service, or if he becomes a partner in a firm or a director or manager of a company which is a party to any such contract. And whereas the Member of Parliament for St. Elizabeth North Eastern is the managing director and sole shareholder of True Bargain Hardware and Construction Company Limited, a dealer in hardware and building supplies, which may from time to time enter into contract with the Government of Jamaica and its affiliated agencies. And whereas the provision is made in Section 1GI of Section 41 of the Constitution to enable this Honourable House to exempt a member from vacating his seat for reasons as aforesaid, if in the circumstances it appears to be just so to do. And whereas the member has disclosed his interest in the aforementioned entity, be it resolved that this motion be referred to the Ethics Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take these motions. Yes.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
on behalf of the member for Western St. Andrew, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, he will move. Whereas the current network of drains and gullies existing in the corporate area and throughout the country that has been in a deplorable condition for several decades due to the lack of sustained maintenance and repairs over those decades, and was never designed to handle the increased runoff of storm water resulting from increased development of the physical infrastructure, and exacerbated by the frequency of heavy rainfall due to climate change. And whereas Marcus Garvey Drive and Mandela Highway, the main arterial roads linking the industrial belt with the port of Kingston, through which the island's major commerce with the rest of the world is conducted, recently experienced severe flooding, leaving commuters stranded for several hours following heavy rainfall in the vicinity of those thoroughfares. And whereas much of the wastewater from industrial activities, as well as from sewer mains, end up in our existing drains and gullies, and which, among other harmful effects, represent a continuing threat to the health of many of our citizens, especially in poor communities located near to those existing drains and gullies. And whereas successive budgets have not been able to adequately fund the maintenance and repairs of the existing drain and gully networks, be it resolved that this Honourable House debate this motion with a view to finding creative solutions to the current problems of inadequate design, poor repair, and maintenance of the existing networks of drains and gullies throughout the corporate area, Montego Bay, and other towns. Be it further resolved that this Honourable House direct the appropriate committee to examine the current and future development plans of the government to ensure that full account is taken of the need for adequate drainage system to be put in place to address the various sources of increased water runoff, effluent, and sewage.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House I'll move. Be it resolved, with reference to the resolution approved by this Honourable House on the 6th day of October 2020, appointing a special select committee to sit jointly with a similar committee to be appointed by the Senate to consider and report on a bill shortly entitled the Sexual Harassment Act 2020 that names Dwight Sibblies and Lothian cousins be added thereto. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion. Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, on behalf of the Minister of National Security, he will move that whereas Section 26(1) of the Law Reform Zones of Special Operation, Special Security and Community Development Measures, Act 2017, requires that the Act be reviewed from time to time by a committee of both Houses of Parliament appointed for the purpose. Be it resolved that this Honourable House appoints a select committee comprising the following members: the Honourable Dr. Horace Chang, MP, the Honourable Delroy Chuck, MP, Mrs. Marlene Malahou-Fort, MP, Ms. Carencia Morrison, MP, Mr. Donovan Williams, MP, Mr. Robert Miller, MP, Mr. Fitz-Jackson, MP, and Mr. Philip Paulwell, MP, to sit jointly with a similar committee to be appointed by the Senate to consider and report on the Act. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, the Minister will move for the suspension of the standing order to enable him to take the motion.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to move the following motion. Whereas the municipality of Portmore was first established in 2003 by virtue of Section 3 of the Municipalities Act repealed, and whereas the Municipality Portmore Order 2003 was made declaring the inhabitant of the area a municipality, and whereas a charter of the municipality of Portmore was granted in 2003 for the governance of the municipality, and whereas the municipality of Portmore established under the Municipalities Act was repealed and thereafter continue, and as deemed to be a city municipality under and by virtue of the Local Governance Act of 2016, and where by virtue of the Local Governance Municipality of Portmore Change of Name Order 2018, the municipality of Portmore was renamed the Portmore City Municipality. And whereas the demographic making up the Portmore City Municipality now deem that it be established as a parish to focus exclusively on managing the area in the order to achieve sustainable development. And whereas the economic, social, and cultural benefits and potential for generating revenue with Portmore becoming a parish, be it resolved that this Honourable House of Representatives appoint a special select committee to be chaired by the member from St. Catherine South Central to sit jointly with a similar committee to be appointed by the Senate and to consider and report on the proposal to make Portmore City Municipality the 15th parish of Jamaica. And be it further resolved that this motion be referred to the Senate and be it further resolved that I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to allow me for the establishment of this committee. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to give notice of the motion, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice on behalf of the Minister of Finance. I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, he will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Bank of Jamaica Amendment Act 2020. Madam Speaker, I further move on behalf of the Minister of Finance that at the next meeting of the House, I will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Revenue Administration Amendment Act 2020. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and answers to questions? Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the questions were tabled to be answered by me. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I am seeking to defer to another 14 days in order for me to respond to the questions that was tabled, which I received late, Madam Speaker. So I am asking the permission to defer to respond to the questions for another 14 days.
The question before the House is that the answer to the question asked of the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development be deferred for another 14 days in accordance with Standing Order 17A. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. We're now members. I see the Minister of Agriculture walking in and the Minister of Health and Wellness is here.
Madam Speaker, May I crave your indulgence to proceed to public business so as to give the members time?
Public business.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motions, notice of which I gave earlier, in respect, Madam Speaker, of the two members whose motion for exemptions were stated.
The question is that there is a suspension of the standing orders to allow the member to take the motion, notice of which was given earlier. House Leader? Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, I now move that the motions, notice of which I gave earlier, be approved.
Be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Motion approved.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motions given notice of which I gave earlier concerning the addition of members to the Sexual Harassment Committee.
The question is that the notice of motion that was given earlier be now suspension for the notice of the motion which was given earlier. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
I now move that the motion, notice of which I gave earlier, be approved.
Question is that the motion be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that the standing orders be suspended to enable me to take the motions, notice of which I gave earlier, with regards to the membership of the Committee to Review Law Reform, Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Act 2017.
Question is that the standing orders be suspended to allow those in favor, those against? Those in favor, those against?
Aye. Madam Speaker, I now move that the motions, notice of which I gave earlier, be approved.
Question is that the motions, notice of which was given earlier, be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Desmond, get up on just get up on your committee members. Let me give him it. Because I don't have it.
Yeah. Madam Speaker,
Just giving him that.
I'd like to now name the... Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is good that the power of women is on display so eloquently in this honorable House. Thank you for pulling me in line. Madam Speaker, it is proposed that the following members will sit on the committee with the members who will be nominated from the upper house. Dr. Andrew Wheatley, Chairman, the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Delroy Chuck, the Attorney General, Honorable Marlene Malou Fort, the Minister without Portfolio, the Honorable Clifford Everard Warmington, the State Minister in the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, the Honorable Omar Davis, the State Minister in the Ministry of Youth, of Entertainment, Gender, Culture, the Honorable Orlando Terrelong, and the Member of Parliament for St. Catherine South, Mr. Robert Miller. The remaining members, the member from St. Catherine South, I think it is, South, yeah, Mr. Fitzjackson, and member from St. Catherine, Miss Denise Daly, will sit jointly with those members to be appointed by the Senate. May it please you, I seek the approval of the Honorable House.
Madam Speaker, the opposition is certainly going to be working to ensure that the legislation is expedited. But I just wanted to ask the Minister, when he closes, if he could just indicate to us whether or not consultations have occurred already in relation to those persons in these communities, the community of Portmore, the elected representatives, or is it that during the Joint Select Committee of the House, consultations will commence, because we have reached a substantial part of the journey by way of a bill being presented today. So we'd like to understand what consultations have been done so far.
Thank you, member from East Kingston and Port Royal.
Leader of Opposition, Vincent, it's not a bill that's before the House, you know, it's a motion that is before the House today. The bill will in fact come later. There's no bill before the House.
It's a motion.
It's a motion that's before the House.
That we have put forward for the establishment, and once that is established, then that protocol will be thrown in, because we are not prepared to go without the necessary consultations. But the process has to start first with the motion to establish the committee.
Therefore, the questions before the House are: one, that the motion be approved and that the committee be settled. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Motion approved.
Madam Speaker, I beg for the suspension of the standing orders to allow for the item statement by ministers to be taken at this time.
The question before the House is that the item statements be recommitted. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam
Minister
Speaker,
Green.
Madam Speaker, as indicated, there are two statements. The first will be by the Honorable Floyd Green, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, and related matters.
If it pleases you, Madam Speaker, copies of this statement has been provided, Madam Speaker, and should be circulated as I speak. I have them. Okay, it's being circulated now. I think you're the opposition spokesperson. Okay, no problem. Madam Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted fish production and the fisheries value chain with varying degrees of negative impact. Losses from both our local and overseas markets have resulted in higher input costs, causing significant increases in operational expenses. It is estimated, Madam Speaker, that the fisheries sector may lose up to US $23.1 million during 2020, due largely to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the breakdown, Madam Speaker, is that our capture fishers, we expect them to lose about US $20.9 million, and those who participate in aquaculture to lose US $2.2 million. Madam Speaker, while the basic production systems are still intact, with most small-scale fishers and fish farmers still being able to produce and sell at farm gate, the contraction has had the contingent effect of depressing production operations. Similarly, there has been an increase in the cost of inputs such as mesh wire for fishers and chemicals required for aquaculture, the majority of which are imported from overseas. Also, Madam Speaker, because of the drop in the sales of fish and an extended period of bad weather, many fishers are going offshore less frequently, resulting in loss of fishing gear and income. These factors have resulted in increases in the unit cost for the production per fish sold. As such, Madam Speaker, to improve productivity in the sector, some level of recapitalization will be necessary for both fishers and fish farmers. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, on the recommendation of the National Fisheries Authority, has undertaken the following strategic initiatives to assist the sector during the COVID-19 pandemic. Working with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Attorney General Chambers, we continue to facilitate the coordinated movement for fishers across our sector. This includes fishers, fish farmers, fish farm workers, fish vendors, fish processors, workers, and other fishing industry support workers. What we saw initially, Madam Speaker, is that with the onset of COVID-19, when we put in our enforcement measures, some of those enforcement measures did not specifically exclude or provide provisions for those who participate in the fisheries sector. And as such, we met with Attorney General Chambers, we worked with the Ministry of Health, and the latest set of Disaster Risk Management Act, the Disaster Risk Management Enforcement Measures, have ensured that it includes in the second and third schedule exemptions for persons who are employed, engaged in catching, landing, or processing of fish, pursuant to a license or permit issued under the Fisheries Act. What we have been doing to support that also, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that we process and provide to those in the fisheries sector identification cards free of cost. And as such, over the last few months, we have provided 106 fish farmers and fish farm workers across 24 fish farms with identification cards. Madam Speaker, over the last 2.5 weeks, I went with the team from the National Fisheries Authority to every parish to listen to the voice of our fishermen and women. And they had a number of concerns, issues, and a number of suggestions. One of the things that they made clear is that they felt left out, Madam Speaker. They have heard a lot of talk about how we're going to help farmers during the COVID-19 pandemic, but they haven't heard much said in relation to their own plight. And today, the plan is to right that wrong. And as such, Madam Speaker, I promised them that when we got back, we would sit with the team from the National Fisheries Authority and we would unveil a sort of fisheries incentive program, which we expect, Madam Speaker, will become a mainstay of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. Just as we have our productive incentive program for fisheries, we want to ensure that there's an incentive regime to not only ensure that our fishers, that our fisher folk are able to continue in the industry, but to also attract new participants. So this is the first step, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, approximately 260 fishermen and women from St. Catherine and St. Mary were subject to lockdowns in April and May, respectively. They were unable to go to sea because we had put in full lockdowns on the parishes of St. Catherine and parts of St. Mary, and they were not given exemption. As such, they suffered damage, Madam Speaker. In this regard, 260 fishers from St. Catherine and St. Mary will receive grants in the form of vouchers totaling $8 million. This is to allow them to recoup the loss that they suffered by damage to their fishing equipment that were at sea during the period and that they were unable to attend to. These include primarily trap fishermen and some net and line fishers. So, as you can understand, Madam Speaker, they were unable to go out to take back in their pots and would have ended up losing their pots. And we believe we have to right that wrong. And as such, 260 of them will get a grant which totals $8 million. But we have gone a bit further, Madam Speaker, because we do understand that the sort of downturn in the economy affects our fishermen and women right across Jamaica. And as such, Madam Speaker, we are going to provide approximately 4,740 licensed fishers from across 137 fishing communities with grants totaling $67 million. Each fisher will be provided with a voucher valued at $15,000 to be used to purchase fish mesh wire or equivalent fish gear. We are also going to help our fish farmers, Madam Speaker. Our fish farmers in aquaculture production areas who had challenges procuring feed and fish fingerlings will receive grants in the form of vouchers totaling $20 million. Approximately 72 farmers will benefit from this. And, Madam Speaker, we are not leaving out our ornamental fish farmers. They are an important subsector, and we're going to provide a grant of $1 million to facilitate the provision of brine shrimp that they use as feed to breeders, as well as fish feed, and to support their infrastructure development. Madam Speaker, just to tell you a little bit about the methodology, especially in relation to our 4,740 licensed fishers who stand to benefit. Those are larger capture fishers or artisanal fishermen and women. Approximately 30 million of the grant, Madam Speaker, will be distributed through those members of Parliament that have fishing communities within their constituency. Each fisher will be provided with a voucher valued at $15,000. Vouchers will allow fishers to redeem fishing gear or material only from participating entities and are therefore not redeemable for cash. Each MP will be allocated between a minimum of $510,000 up to a maximum of $1.5 million. That will be decided upon based on the number of registered fishers in each constituency, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the $37 million of that initial $67 million that is targeting 4,740 licensed fishers will be distributed through the National Fisheries Authority under the new Fisheries Incentive Program, and again it will similarly be used to distribute vouchers valuing at $15,000 to registered fishers through the National Fisheries Authority's offices island-wide. All our other benefits, whether to our fish farmers or ornamental fish producing sector, will be administered by the National Fisheries Authority. We have put in place systems, Madam Speaker, to ensure that no one individual can benefit more than once from any of the methodologies that we're using. We want to ensure, Madam Speaker, that we stretch it as far as possible to impact the greatest number of our fisher folk. In summary, Madam Speaker, the following provisions are being made. For our capture fishers, to provide mesh wire for those in St. Catherine and St. Mary, we're going to help 260 fishers amounting to $8 million. Right across the island, we're going to help 4,740 fishers with mesh wire amounting to $67 million. We're going to provide 72 farmers with $10 million, and those are fish farmers, for the provision of fingerlings or feed for those who have been impacted. And we're going to help 20 ornamental fish farmers with the provision again of feed amounting to $1 million. In total, Madam Speaker, we're outlining a relief package for our fisheries sector of $120 million. Madam Speaker, we have not forgotten about our industrial fishers. A strategy is being developed for a support package for that category who have not only been severely impacted by COVID-19, but have also suffered tremendous losses from 2 years of the closure of our conch fishing industry. We will announce that program later on, Madam Speaker, as we continue to negotiate and see how best we can help some of our big industrial players to weather this storm. Madam Speaker, as I close, allow me to highlight some of the other initiatives being pursued by my ministry in relation to our fisheries sector. We're in the process of procuring cold storage containers to be placed on strategic fishing beaches island-wide to enhance our value chain support. We have earmarked $20 million for this program. Madam Speaker, under a World Bank US $5 million project, which is aimed at promoting community-based climate resilience in the fisheries sector, the ministry, through the National Fisheries Authority, continues to increase the adoption of climate-resilient practices among targeted fishing and fish farming communities in Jamaica. A lot of us are already familiar with our special conservation areas, what we tend to call our fish sanctuaries, who have done tremendous work in helping us to rebuild our fisheries stock, population of fish, so that we can support the industry. They have been complaining bitterly, Madam Speaker, about issues they have regarding patrolling those sanctuaries and being able to enforce the boundaries and ensure that they are not poached upon. We are really appreciative of the support from the World Bank, because that support, Madam Speaker, has allowed us to purchase a brand new enforcement vessel valued at US $168,000, which was commissioned on Friday. This will give us the capacity, Madam Speaker, to protect and to enhance our protection of our fish sanctuaries and to strengthen our enforcement efforts. Just to say, Madam Speaker, not only have we procured a brand new vessel, but it also, the support from the World Bank also comes with a brand new sports utility vehicle, which carries around the vessel from point to point, valued at US $49,000. It's a Super Duty pickup truck, and also a 15-seater passenger bus to travel, to transport the enforcement team when they have to go on these enforcement missions. So overall, the commitment from the World Bank through partnership is over US $250,000 to strengthen our enforcement capabilities. Madam Speaker, we are aware that this is just the start. But I want to say to my fisher folk that in this government, they can depend on us to stand up with them in the challenging times. And we are taking the steps to ensure that our fishermen and women, Madam Speaker, who work tremendously hard, that they get the respect and regard that they deserve. So I close by making the point that these benefits, Madam Speaker, and my colleague members of Parliament will flow to those who are registered and licensed. So I use the opportunity to say to my fisher folk right across the length and breadth of Jamaica, take the opportunity to get registered, to get licensed. Once the government knows you are a part of the system, then we are here to support you. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, you know, I am one of those persons who believe that my apologies, Madam Speaker. No, man, it's fine. Madam Speaker, I am one of those persons who believe that you must give credit where credit is due. And the bottom line is that oftentimes our fisher folk are left behind. And so, Minister, this proposal, this intervention is timely and is welcomed at this time. And I also appreciate the fact that you will also include the members of Parliament in the distribution and the assistance effort. Now, as far as I and us on the opposition side are concerned, Minister, there's also an issue that I expected that you would address today, that is the situation with the agricultural sector. And I appreciate the fact that we're still experiencing flooding, excessive rainfall, and therefore you probably, out of an abundance of caution, would want to wait until you have a full assessment of the damages before you present to us the relief effort for the farmers. It is very important that the relief, whatever relief you are proposing, is presented as soon as practicably possible. A lot of us are anxious. The consumers are anxious. The farmers are anxious. And I don't want to take away from the fact that the fisher folk will benefit. Yes, we want them to benefit. And we're happy that they're benefiting. But the issue that is of grave concern to most Jamaicans at the moment is what will the government be doing to address the issues that we expect will come up in a few months' time, or a month from now, that is Christmas. And so, Minister, I'm grateful for, and I'm sure the fisher folk are grateful for whatever assistance they receive. But I believe as soon as possible, you need to address that issue. Also, Minister, I am looking at the document that you presented, and I am noticing maybe an error, so I'd want you to check it out for me. There are two subtotals. One subtotal for 75 million, another one for 21 million. That accounts for 96 million. However, the grand total at the bottom is 120 million, which leaves us with a difference of $24 million. So, I don't know if there's an error. There was an error. I want you to address that issue, Minister. Thank you very much.
Thanks to the member, and I will definitely check on the figures in relation to the addition, but definitely you can rest assured that the 67 million that we have indicated for the 4,740 fishermen and women, that figure is set in stone. But I will look back at the calculation. In relation to broader issues regarding the agricultural sector, the plan is, Madam Speaker, to bring a statement next week. You can understand why we never came with a statement today, because the reality is that the rains are still falling. In fact, Madam Speaker, I spent the better part of last week actually visiting with farmers. I have gone to St. Catherine, I went to New Forest, where our largest production of scallion has been completely decimated. I spent Saturday in St. Elizabeth looking at some of the challenges regarding our vine crops, substantial damage. But unfortunately, even when we went to New Forest on Thursday, there was rain, and our tour was cut short on Saturday because of rain. And based on my checks yesterday, St. Elizabeth, which is, again, our breadbasket, actually recorded the highest amount of rain in the entire country. The rain has not stopped since Sunday. So even though we have a preliminary assessment, we would not want to craft a response program until we are a little more certain in relation to the extent of the damage. Nonetheless, Madam Speaker, we have already started to respond. RADA has already, through its own reallocation and sources, has already made $15 million available for the hardest hit parishes, which thus far are Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth. That will go automatically to the procurement of seeds to be again administered through the RADA office, and the procurement of chemicals. But a more comprehensive program that will include the members of Parliament, because I do believe the members of Parliament have to be included, will be outlined in Parliament next week, Madam Speaker. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Member. I thought when you said unfortunately, you were going to say unfortunately you have not reached South Trelawney, which produces so much of the food that we eat. And I would just remind the member from Southwestern Clarendon, when he's asking anxiously for the report, that we can borrow from the Americans today, I think the minister is just going slowly, because it's better to be accurate with what he presents or what he's doing, rather than rush to an assessment which is not accurate. Go ahead.
Madam Speaker, I'm inquiring of the Minister. You have noted that there are 137 fishing communities. Would you be able to give us a list of those communities?
Yeah, so that list can be provided. Not clearly, no, but I can provide that list for Baronex City. We have that list. And Madam Speaker, I take your point in relation to Southern Trelawney, who produces our #1 export.
Much, Minister.
Madam. Yeah, no, I don't need anything now. If I could. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I don't want to seem parochial, but I am moved by the mention of the Speaker, and also because often the fishing village that is in the constituency often gets overlooked and neglected. I know that there was a previous minister who wanted to clear them off the face of the earth. I have told them that I have come there, I have inherited them, and I am there as their champion and their protector. I am hoping, therefore, Minister, that they certainly would be included in the list that you would present at a later time for the member from East Kingston, Port Royal. And I, too, would want to make sure that they are included. Thank you.
Just to assure the member that once they are registered, they will be included. And just to indicate, in fairness, as a part of my listening tour, we did have a group that came from your constituency and spoke very passionately about the work that they do in relation to sprat fishing. So I'm very aware of some of the challenges.
Minister.
Madam Speaker, the Minister of Health and Wellness, the Honorable Dr. Christopher Tufton, will now make his statement.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to update this Honourable House and the people of Jamaica on the recent developments surrounding COVID-19 and its impact on residential institutions, namely nursing homes, infirmaries, prisons, which house some of the vulnerable members of our society. I'm going to focus primarily on nursing homes and infirmaries in this presentation. Madam Speaker, as early as January 2020, the public health team began to develop protocols that would help to delay the entry of the virus into the country, contain its spread, and slow the transmission among the population. To date, the team has developed some 50 protocols to govern this public health challenge. Chief on our radar, Madam Speaker, would be the protection of the vulnerable members of the society, which includes our seniors, many of whom are in facility care run by the state and by private interests. To this end, the public health team has included as part of its routine surveillance the inspection of nursing homes, prisons, and infirmaries. Madam Speaker, colleagues, as the country may be aware, recently 3 such facilities through our routine surveillance have been found to have had COVID-19 cases. Madam Speaker, emergency management protocols had to be triggered at the Golden Age home in St. Andrew after an investigation involving contact tracing, testing, and inspection by the public health team. A cluster of cases was uncovered. Madam Speaker, of the 620 residents and staff members tested over a 3-day period, 87 results had returned positive for COVID-19, while 533 were negative. The 87 positive cases included 65 residents and 22 staff members. To date, Madam Speaker, all the cases remain stable and asymptomatic. Regrettably, the first case demised last week, and we want to use the opportunity, of course, to express our condolences to the family and close friends of the deceased. On the other hand, Madam Speaker, we are pleased to report that 43 of the 87 positive cases at the Golden Age home have now recovered from COVID-19. Further, Madam Speaker, all residents and staff at the facility continue to be monitored closely, and the compound is managed with enhanced infection prevention and control procedures. And I want to cite the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. The Minister Mackenzie and I have worked very closely on his team. And, you know, Madam Speaker, these are really vulnerable members of our society in that they have comorbidities for the most part. They're aged or senior citizens. And I think it is a tribute to the efforts both of the staff at the facility and the public health team that the situation is not far worse than it could have been. And one only has to cast their minds at other similar institutions abroad whenever we have these outbreaks and the casualties that result. So I really want to just place on record. In terms of the Missionaries of the Poor, the 3rd facility, on Sunday, November 1st, a cluster of COVID-19 cases was reported at a facility run by the Missionaries of the Poor. Of a total of 125 persons sampled, 74 were found to be positive, so a fairly significant outbreak, including 6 staff members, and there were 46 negatives, while 5 results are still pending. Madam Speaker, the health team has also collected some 358 samples from 7 facilities operated by Missionaries of the Poor, including of its 358 samples, Madam Speaker, at 7 facilities. From the testing of those samples, 88 have been found to be positive, while 220 were negative, and we are awaiting the outcome of another 50. The Ministry, Madam Speaker, colleagues have since engaged the Missionaries of the Poor to put in place a range of measures to slow transmission at the facility, including adhering to the previous recommendations of no one in, no one out, strict adherence to the no visitor policy, having the dedicated staff and equipment for the different clusters at the facility, and ensuring adequate supply of personal protective equipment. So we are and will continue, Madam Speaker, colleagues, to work with the Missionaries of the Poor, but so far all have been cooperative, and I believe we will work through to an amicable solution to the challenge. In terms of the inspection of residential facilities across the island, Madam Speaker, from a national viewpoint on the inspections of residential facilities, some 236 such facilities have been inspected, including 203 nursing homes, 13 infirmaries, 14 children homes, and 6 rehabilitation institutions. Of that number, 99 nursing homes, or 48.8%, were found to be compliant with the COVID-19 protocols. The same obtained for 7 of the infirmaries, 4 children homes, and 2 of the rehabilitation institutions. Madam Speaker, for breaches under the nuanced regulations, 2 private-run nursing homes in Manchester and Clarendon, respectively, have been ordered closed. In the case of prisons and lockups, 43 of the 106 in the country have been inspected so far, with 12 meeting the COVID-19 standard, Madam Speaker, while the other 31 have been given a timeline within which to become compliant. Madam Speaker, members of this Honourable House, the Ministry has developed specifically a protocol for environmental considerations for nursing homes and residential facilities, a checklist for nursing homes and healthcare institutions, and a self-assessment tool for public facilities and workplaces. These documents have been made available to owners and operators and residential facilities, and the local health teams have conducted training sessions and will continue so to do. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I am serving notice to all owners and operators of residential healthcare facilities that they must become compliant with all the regulations and protocols related to COVID-19 by November 30th, 2020. Failure to comply to same, Madam Speaker, will see prosecutions under the Public Health Act or the Disaster Risk Management Orders, which may result in fines of up to 1 million Jamaican dollars, or worse, ordering them to close down. Madam Speaker, I believe it is nothing short of a miracle that we do not have more fatalities than we have currently. Every fatality is regrettable, but the truth is we have done remarkably well under the circumstances, and we cannot afford to continue to tempt fate and to take risks, unnecessary risks in some instances. We understand the nature of the virus. It is highly contagious, and there is always the possibility of margins of error, even with following the protocols, and we will use our judgment in the inspections and assessment where these breaches appear to occur. But the truth is there are some basic fundamental systems which must be in place, and the obligation rests with those who operate these facilities. And the government has a duty, a responsibility to take the strongest action where those basic arrangements are not in place. And so we're serving notice that we expect compliance or the consequences of a fine or worse, total shutdown. So finally, Madam Speaker, it is in the intention of the Ministry of Health and Wellness to continue to work with the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, the Ministry of National Security, and indeed other ministries, departments, agencies, private sector entities, and all of Jamaica, with special focus on the most vulnerable in our society. Community transmission is the phase of the COVID virus that creates the greatest challenges or greatest risk. And those who are most vulnerable are those with particular circumstances, age, comorbidities, and those are the persons, the individuals that we will have to focus on in order to minimize deaths. And that is what we will be doing in the days and months to come. We all have a duty, Madam Speaker, of care to our fellow brothers and sisters to protect them from COVID-19. Madam Speaker, it remains vital that the people of Jamaica perform various infection prevention and control measures, and at no time should we become complacent as our national efforts continue to contain the COVID-19 virus. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I'd like to thank the Honourable Minister for the report that he has given to the Parliament, and secondly, to indicate the concern that we all have as a country that the spread has gone to affect those in our seniors in the places of safety and healthcare facilities. Unfortunately, this is always a reality when you have community spread of the COVID virus, and this is what has obtained just now. And we know that the Honourable Minister indicated that everything that could have been done was done to prevent it from getting to the nursing, to the golden age home, but it did happen. And it's unfortunate it happened, and it meant that somewhere along the line, the protocol might have broken down. The Minister's statement, Madam Speaker, mentioned that all, unfortunately and fortunately, all the members who have been, except for the one who demised, unfortunately, are stable and asymptomatic. And it drives home the point that has been established from a long time, Minister, Madam Speaker, that the asymptomatic persons are still carriers of the virus. And sometimes in our quest to try and contain it, we sometimes exclude the asymptomatic persons, which is the reason why the whole aspect of contact tracing, testing, contact tracing has to be continued and reinforced and encouraged to ensure that we do not have those who are asymptomatic spreading the virus out there to others. Minister, you indicated that all the nursing home facilities have been visited and some have been compliant. I know that under the law, the private hospitals also fall under that category. And can you assure us that those private hospitals are also compliant within the numbers that you indicated in your statement here that are compliant? I find it a little curious, though, Minister, that you have reported that 43 of the 87 positive cases at the Golden Age Home have recovered, and this is good. But I'd like to know whether these recoveries have been validated by testing, discharge testing, although they were not admitted, but testing after to see whether they have recovered or it's just a clinical case of recovery by these people, because that is important. And similarly, the fact that the report to the country was done on the 21st of October. The statement today is the 3rd of November. And we are seeing now that we have been able to report that within this 14-day period that so many have recovered. I'm curious because, Minister, the World Health Organization indicated that it usually takes on average about 14 days for the recovery of the mild cases and so. So is it therefore that we had the infection or the spread of COVID-19 in the facility before the 21st, or is it that we have miraculously, and you used the word earlier on, have had recovery in less than 14 days? The concern at the prisons too, Minister, is also worrying, and I note that the ministry, the appropriate ministry, has stopped visitations by relatives and others. And part of the effort to contain it now rests with those who work in the facilities to ensure that they are screened and properly observing of the protocols, such as mask wearing, such as social distancing, and such as preventing the gathering at the respective crowded areas. Minister, my final comment on this is the numbers of deaths that we have seen so far. And unfortunately, we have lost 214 persons so far from COVID-19. And as has been said by both sides, any death that has been lost is unfortunate and regrettable. I think, however, though, Minister, part of the challenge that we have, and I spoke to it some time ago when you responded, is the need for us as a country, as citizens, to pay closer attention and more dedicated attention to the protocols that are out there. The mask wearing, and I will not sit until I speak about it, Madam Speaker, the mask wearing, the need to practice the social distance, the physical distancing, and the need to avoid, as the protocol calls for, the gathering of people in public spaces, the dances, all that is happening. You know, Madam Speaker, sometimes it takes an unfortunate situation closer to home for one to recognize how important it is to observe the protocols. And God forbid, it ought not to take something closer to home for us to recognize that COVID-19 is there. It's still a keep, as some would want to say, and it is still contagious. And the fact too, Madam Speaker, is that every day we are learning more and more about the particular condition. And we are also advised that there is some amount of mutation of the virus. So sometimes you will see different complications. It was only this morning that I was listening to a radio station, and as a physician, I am aware, but it came over quite poignantly, that athletes who are thinking of going back to do any physical training and who might have been exposed to someone who had COVID or had COVID should do some form of heart examination, because they might go there in their training and COVID has affected the heart, and then they may run into complications. So I say all of that to say that we are still encouraging our people, as the ministry is doing, to adhere to the protocols of the mask wearing, the social distancing, and to ensure that we do not have these large crowds. And Prime Minister, you said that if we don't keep the numbers down, Christmas might not keep. And I'm sure many people want Christmas to keep. So I think that part of what we should do is to ensure that we see, as minister, the trajectory of numbers are going down. We're happy to note that. Your data is suggesting that. We're happy to note that. And there are some indications, Madam Speaker, that Christmas might keep, as the Prime Minister said, if we continue on this trajectory. So I'm appealing to our Jamaicans from the opposition, as the Minister is doing from the side of the government, that we should observe the protocols. Thank you.
Minister, if you breaches and corrective measures or the strengthening of the protocols. In the case of the Golden Age home, I don't think it was so much a breach as it was, or should I say, a neglecting of the protocol, as it was just the management of the process or an individual self-management in picking up the virus, a worker in this case, and may not have followed through as diligently and not deliberately so on the protocols that would ensure that they are identified or that they protect themselves from infecting someone else. And I'll explain, because it's a very delicate balance, and what we don't want to do is to condemn or to convict anyone who may have the virus but really followed through, but because of the highly contagious nature of the virus, just mismanaging the wearing of the mask, which I believe we're all guilty of at some point in time. How we take it off, how we put it on, could cause us to contaminate ourselves and others without the intention so to do. And I think in this case, the Golden Age home has been following a protocol and has done fairly well with it, but it only takes one slip to create the type of outbreak, and that's what we witness. So the initial indication is that it was linked to one worker, and there is a protocol for them to come in, to change, and then to go and do the work with the mask and so on, and that was followed consistently. But there seemed to be an error there. So it's a matter of retraining and just trying to emphasize the approach. We're doing the same with all the other entities, assessing. In terms of the challenges raised by the member from St. Mary, it's difficult, as I said earlier. I mean, we could follow all the protocols and still have a challenge because of various reasons, which is why we have to be extra cautious. You could be a positive case also, and because you wear the mask consistently and appropriately, you will confine the contamination to you and not to others that you come in contact with, which is why we have to look at it from a holistic standpoint. And we continue to press for that, and you have done that, and we appreciate the joint effort and messaging. The hospitals, as far as I know, in relation to that question, are complying with the infection prevention and control. That is separate, of course, from a hospital being registered. And I'm sure you understand the distinction. But I have no report that any such institution is in breach. And we are doing checks, periodic checks with those institutions. In terms of whether or not a negative test was done, that is no longer a requirement by WHO PAHO standards. What they do, they speak to a 14-day period after the infection. And then based on a clinical assessment of the patient, a determination is made as to the status of the patient. And that is what we now do as standard procedure across the board. And that applied also to the home. And I think that's it, Madam Speaker. May it please you.
I'm sorry, Minister. Just one final question here. In relation to the ticketing system for masks, I wasn't too sure if it was raised earlier, but is there still a ticketing system being proposed, and when will that come to this Parliament?
Yes, there is a process being worked on between the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General's Department. I understand that it's in an advanced stage, and I believe it will come to this House. Well, it will come to this House for discussion and approval in due course. So it is being worked on, yes.
Madam Speaker, I am to advise the Honourable House that the preparations for a return to Gordon House is now in full flight, that the work has started in earnest, and we're being advised that we should be ready for the 15th of November as we had indicated. The leader of the opposition business and myself have been working on it along with you, Madam Speaker, and the team from the House. And I believe that we are going to be in a position to accommodate all 63 members in a manner and style that is fitting to the Westminster model that we embrace. Madam Speaker, the process of building capacity for members of the House in terms of enabling more access to training and access also to data and information is being stepped up. You will notice earlier on we introduced the new research persons that we brought in, as well as a number of interns from the university that will add to the capacity to enable better data flow and more research activities that will provide support for the backbenchers, for motions that are to be developed to enable members to familiarize themselves with the laws as it relates to the functioning of Parliament and what is required in setting up the different training and research arrangements that will give them more understanding of how committees function and how also to manipulate the oversight arrangements that are required of them. You know, Madam Speaker, one of the things that we were able to do in another dispensation is to have retreats with committees, for example. And I remember when I was chairman of the PAAC, the number of weekends that we spent at a North Coast facility, bringing together the Bank of Jamaica, the Accountant General Department, the PIOJ, the Auditor General Department, and some private sector entities as well, to help members to understand how to read a balance sheet and how also to understand what a business plan is. And then we went and we got a consultant funded by the IDB. That consultant is still available. So what we were talking about is providing not just a study by way of a very qualified person, but it also provided an opportunity for good prompting notes to members of the committee so that they can ask appropriate questions of the MDAs when they come before them. And I think it helped the PAC during that period to be far more relevant than other PACs might have been in subsequent times. So, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to indicate that we are going to be far more rigorous in terms of building the capacity for this House to be a stronger oversight team for the activities that are critical to the people of Jamaica. And so it's not intended to do any further business
Madam Speaker,
for the day.
If I may, I know it's not a statement by a minister, but if you read a little, House Leader, as it relates to the billing of the capacity, I assume I have your leave, Madam Speaker. The capacity of Gordon House that we are hoping to return back to very shortly. One of the things that has always bedeviled us there is the broadband capacity. Could that be looked at as part of the arrangements that are going forward?
Madam Speaker, you will recall that we have actually started looking at how we could create more scientific applications to the ability of the House to serve better the purpose for which we are set. In fact, the House might want to know that the Hansard workers, for example, we've looked at how to enhance their own capability to record better. And so we're looking at how we can go beyond that to make sure that the infrastructure to enable better internet arrangements at the House are put in place. And there's no question about that. I just wanted you to understand that there's a broader picture that we're looking at. Not just the issue of broadband by itself, but how we are going to be able to use it better to give more access to recall of debates and data that we may provide for use by our members in carrying out the business of the House. So, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, if the leader of government business would be so gracious to yield for a moment. Madam Speaker, I am perplexed. I thought that today we would have had another presentation from the Minister of Education in terms of some of the issues that abound in terms of the reopening of schools in terms of face-to-face. I'm surprised that that was not thought to be a matter that was important enough for discussion in this chamber today.
Member, I'm not sure where on the agenda we are, because I think we are statements by ministers, right? And that is the last item that has been thing. So I would imagine, member, that next week a presentation will be brought to you or will be advised. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to indicate that the member, having mentioned it, I'm sure we will contact the Minister of Education, and in all probability, she will have a statement for the next sitting of the House. Madam Speaker, I invite you, there being no other business for the day, to adjourn the House, to meet next Tuesday, November 10, at 2 p.m. here at the Kenneth Rattray Conference Room.
Madam Speaker,
the question before the House?
Sorry, and I didn't realize we were adjourning. There were some questions that are tabled to be answered today. Could the leader of government business indicate when? Oh, you did before. My apologies. I wasn't here. Okay.
Yes, in keeping with 17A. The question before the House is that this Honourable House to adjourn until next week, Tuesday, November 10th. Those in favour? Those against? This Honourable House is now adjourned.